Hello and welcome to my channel, or welcome back, loyal viewers. I'm Kerry, the nosy housefrau. It's been 6 days since my video on Trisha Paytas and the Jeffree Star drama, and a lot has happened this week. And of course, none of it is any of my business, so it's business as usual. And business for Trisha Paytas has been excellent. She lost a friend, but she gained a fortune in moving on videos. I'm going to cover a lot of what's happened between last week and now, starting with Hairbrain Jay's apology video. Somehow, in that video, where he said he shouldn't have said all of the things he said about Trisha, he managed to be more frightening. He was calm and reticent. He said he would, of course, never hurt anyone. It kind of reminded me of Jodi Arias, with the sweet talking like, I don't understand. I don't like violence. He just grew up that way, etc. was the kind of things he was saying. Like, that's just the way I grew up. Oh no, honey, we know there's something wrong with your upbringing. You didn't have to tell us. I mean, I know nothing about your upbringing, but it seems to me violence flies in the face of that crucifix on the wall. Threats aside, this guy said by the time he was done, Trisha would be anorexic. Like, his cruel words are so powerful, she would no longer eat. And I meant to bring this up before, but I must have killed that darling when I was going over laws and around the threats. So let me address this now. In fact, I'll read you the comment I left under a video by my friend Adam. I've been meaning to shout him out. The Sarcastic Sloth is his channel, and if you don't follow him, I suggest you check him out. He's great. You'll thank me. I'll put a link below. Tell him Nosy sent ya. But here is what I had to say about Jay's weight comments under Sarcastic Sloth's video, Trisha Paytas is terrified of Jeffree Star and Hair by Jay. Because apparently, Hair by Jay thought he was being unique with his idea to fat shame a fat, high-profile woman. So my comment was, that guy saying she'll be anorexic is just further proof that he's clueless. He's not a female and he's not a vlogger. Not only do insults not lead to weight loss, Trisha is a female vlogger. Does he even remotely understand she's been called every fat slur you can think of for over a decade? She can't put a bite of food in her mouth, model clothing, or even get out of bed without people commenting on her body and what it should be. Ugh. I think I may mention this in my next video. That irks me. And you know what? I did make mention of it. There. Seriously, why do people care so much about Trisha's waistline? And what makes this guy think he's going to suddenly tell her something she hasn't heard for over 10 years? God forbid she feels good about herself without being thin. That's offensive. As for Trisha and Shane's friendship, had you asked me even 2 days ago, I would have sworn these two would mend fences. But take a look at this clip from Trading Lives with Trisha Paytas and tell me it doesn't look like Trisha is almost relieved that they're closer from this collaboration. She's teary-eyed about her friendship with Shane, and Shane seems to be making excuses for why he hasn't been as present in her life. And looking at it now, it looks to me like perhaps there were signs that she was more invested than him. Without further ado, let me know what you think.
I wanted to become you. I wanted to see what it was like. You do get a lot of hate. People are very judgmental and like, you know, yeah, you post some crazy videos sometimes and stuff, but I know you as a person.
Yeah.
You have probably the biggest heart of anybody I've ever met. So for me, it's like, yeah, I wanted to do this video, but I also did want to like hang out with you.
Yeah.
Like,
I know. It's
get closer like we used to be.
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
See if we still have that. And we do. Even more than we used to.
No, I know. This was, I think, the most bonding we've ever had. And I was like, it was cool. It was cool because people ask all the time, like, why don't you hang out with Shane? Like, why aren't you and Shane friends? Like, all this stuff like that. And so it was, like, cool to, like, hang out. Because I always say this, and it's true, when we just hang out, it's like, it just feels like the same. It just sucks, you know? Because we used to hang out every day together, you know?
Well, I mean, I definitely feel like now, especially for me, like, in my life, I feel ready to have more hangout time. Because, like, I got so trapped in the fucking grind of YouTube. And now that I'm, like, pulling back a little bit and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I want to actually hang out and just have friends again.
Yeah. But like you said, I'm glad we did this because, like, literally nothing's changed. And I always consider you my best friend. Like, even, like, Friday night when we hung out and, like, afterwards, I was just thinking, like, how, like, lucky I am that you still, like, not only make time for me, but also just, and you know, even doing those thumbnails for me and just stupid shit like that you like don't have to do, and you do it for me. It's like really cool.
Well, I said this at the beginning of my video, but you're family to me. I would fucking take a bullet for you, and that'll never change.
Yeah, his hand to whomever. And since that will never change, apparently, rather than unfollow someone who's threatened his friend with assault, Shane would prefer to be shot. That was genuinely sad to watch. And this friendship being repaired gets more complicated because every day there seems to be another nail in the coffin. One being in his recent Sip podcast where Ryland Adams addressed the Trisha conflict and said that he was confused. I'm confused. He said he loves Trisha and didn't really know she felt this way. As he put it, I'm not a mind reader. The podcast was titled Dealing with Addiction. No one cares what that means. People wanted to hear about Trisha and probably clicked off when the few minutes was over. I know I did. And I will say, as an aside, I really like the look of the room that they made for the podcast, his little he shed or whatever it is. They need to pull that plant away from the wall. It's something you would love to sit and relax in, but I'm not so sure I like it for the podcast. It's a little turn-of-the-century French Riviera cabana. You know, but that is neither here nor there. It's stylish. So regarding his podcast, I'm going to link below an excellent video on the subject by Paige, who pointed out that Ryland had stopped talking to his podcast co-host and friend Lizzie Gordon for a time because she didn't dump a friend who Ryland had a falling out with. So for about 3 years, those two didn't talk because she continued to talk to the guy that Ryland had a falling out with. Follow? So then, when Lizzie found out for herself that said ex-friend was truly toxic, she moved away from him, and she and Ryland repaired their relationship. So, as you can imagine, this makes Ryland sound very hypocritical. But I'm going to tell you, I think I know how he'd explain the distinctions to be made between his situation and Trisha's. Now, I try to look at everything from every angle, and this is supposition, but I bet Ryland would claim that he feels the distinction is that he told his friend to dump the ex-friend. Trisha never actually asked Ryland to dump Jeffrey. That's kind of the way he's putting it. Like, I didn't know if she had just come to me. So maybe he would take that angle and say it's different because he straight out asked Lizzie. But let's just all take a moment to rejoice in the fact that Ryland didn't make his career choice firefighter. Because he'd be outside of an inferno saying, I just wish they'd come to me and ask me to be rescued. I'm not a mind reader. Seriously, who among us needs our friends to send us engraved invitations to defend them against all threats, foreign and domestic? There's no way they didn't know. And I noticed Ryland said he didn't even follow that guy Jay. Like, I didn't even follow him. But he failed to mention that Shane did. Not only did Shane not contact Trisha for 2 days, and during the worst part of that Hair by Jay onslaught, he was still following the guy. That's indefensible. He's saying he had no idea, but clearly when he did have an idea, when Shane and Ryland did have an idea, they still didn't do anything. He's still not doing anything. I mean, what would it have taken for Shane to just unfollow the guy threatening his friend? Geez, I wouldn't follow someone threatening someone I didn't like. Now, Trisha has a lot of videos out on this across social media. The support for her is overwhelming, and I really feel people are so dichotomous in their thinking that they have to consider you are either for or against her, or anything, really. And now, if you saw my last video, you know I removed Trisha's behavior from the equation because I felt it was about the criminal behavior and the threats that were made against her. And it was about Jeffrey turning a blind eye to said criminal behavior. And I don't have to like someone to defend them. Before I'm a fan of anyone, I'm a fan of the truth. And I have to answer to my empathy. However, to some people, that somehow meant I was Team Trisha. And this is fascinating because I see people straight out putting a halo over Trisha's head this week. If you don't put a million disclaimers in front of what you say, people misunderstand it. Or they're determined to find fault with a dissenting view and no disclaimer matters. So on that subject, I have found that if you post something in defense of Trisha on social media, you'll get a lot of support if it's not a week where she's on the hot seat. If you post a truth about her poor behavior, particularly this week when she's not on the hot seat, you will hear crickets. And I know this is true because it happened the last 2 times I posted definitive examples of her lying or being generally horrible. One was when we were first in the midst of the seriousness of this quarantine. She was driving around LA talking about how it was no worse than the flu. She spread so much misinformation about this, and when I pointed it out, crickets. People want to like her. Then she was on H3H3 saying she no longer trolled. He said, "You don't think you're trolled?" Ethan said that to her, and she's like, "No, I no longer troll." She said that was the old her, a while ago. And then she proceeded to tell Ethan that she only recently found out that Hitler was bad because of watching The Producers with her now fiancé Moses. She swore to Ethan that that's how she learned it, by watching The Producers with Moses. Before that, she didn't know he was such a bad guy. I knew I had heard that before. Remember, I know far too much about these people. So I checked the archives. I promise you this sounds like a bigger portion of my life than it is, but I found a clip of Trisha easily before 2014, but someone uploaded it around then.
And I know it can be a little touchy subject. Up until I saw, well, it wasn't Inglourious Basterds, it was up until I saw The Producers, the musical by Mel Brooks, that I realized, like, he was he was like a real person.
I played those clips side by side. 12 likes. No one cared. No one cared. So the woman garners sympathy much more easily than criticism. Because when something bad happens to her, anything crappy she has done is blurry somehow. It's barely a hum in the background. And because I've noticed people are so in support of her and get invested in these hot button issues, I pushed a button. I posted something on Twitter deliberately without a disclaimer. I made it rather innocuous. My suspicion was, if I leave a blank, what will people fill in for me? I had a hunch I knew what it would be. So without saying Trisha had done some bad stuff but doesn't deserve what happened to her, I left the whole Shane thing out of it and merely asked why people forget Trisha's transgressions. Here's the tweet. How does Trisha Paytas get people to forget her transgressions? Is she magical? And the idea was, would people assume I was saying something about this Shane drama? And would some of those assumptions be that I hate Trisha and implying she deserved what she got? That's exactly what happened. It's fascinating. Almost no one who responded had seen my video defending Trisha or known that I had at all. They assumed, some, that I had no empathy. Most people, I'd say, were on board with my thinking. A lot of like minds follow me on Twitter. I'm friendly with people, so we kind of get each other. But I did get nibbles from people who I think probably found my tweet in a Trisha search. And because people get so invested, they read more into what you say without asking. So I believe people saw me as saying a lot more than I said. And questions weren't asked. It was as if, even though I said Trisha's transgressions seem to be forgotten very often, which is something I said before the Shane problem, people heard me say Trisha has been bad in the past and therefore deserves everything she got this week. She deserved Jeffrey and Shane being mean to her and that other. She deserves what she gets. That's how I think a lot of people interpreted it. And I thought that was interesting because they filled in the blanks for me. I will say, even people who may have thought I meant that were coming from a place of empathy and were actually very nice. I was actually really touched by how much people who don't like her were coming to her defense. That's really, it gives you hope for humanity when people are that sweet. And now, some might look at this and say, of course people thought I was talking about Shane because look at the timing of my tweet. And that's a valid point. But I still think it's a problem. I think we've gotten so used to this limited form of communication that instead of really listening to each other and not assuming, asking questions, we fill in our own blanks and decide what team people are on. People compartmentalize. They have a problem with gray areas. Period. And I'm sure I've done it too, without question, because it's our nature to try and partition these things. It's our nature to put things in a box for our understanding and categorize. But I think we need to transcend that and not assume and not say, because I'm so immersed in this drama, I'm only looking through everything through this lens. Posting a tweet, even if you think it's benign, makes it a much bolder statement than it might be. You're giving it a life. So where we are at now is some people say Trisha Paytas has done bad things but didn't deserve what happened to her. And there are others who say Trisha Paytas didn't deserve what happened to her, but she has done some bad things. You see the difference in those two statements? One of them seems to, in my eyes, offer her more sympathy. And I think that we are at the point now, with 15 moving on videos from Trisha, that perhaps it's time to say, she didn't deserve what happened to her, but she has done bad things that she should be accountable for. And I found out why I really wanted to make this tweet. It occurred to me hours later. I'm not bothered how anybody looks at this. I'm bothered that I do it. I'm bothered that I always want to be nice to her and I forget. In general, I'm not good at holding a grudge. Perhaps I'm Irish. But we get mad and 5 minutes later we're over it. But I don't want to overlook things that somebody should be held accountable for. And I don't want to find myself forgetting. I don't want to forget, that she attacked a kid. I don't want to forget that she called this thing the flu, or that she, before Robin Williams was even cremated, was implying that she knew him in a certain sense. There's been a legion of things. I do feel bad about what Trisha went through recently, but I don't want to feel so bad for her that I forget that I've never seen her feel bad for anyone else. So, I think a lot of people are saying Trisha is taking accountability for her actions by saying, I know I'm problematic. Well, if you believe her when she says that, it's my opinion that you've been duped. Because saying I know I'm problematic is not accountability. That's a pretense of taking ownership designed to mimic real accountability. And I can't believe people fall for it. History dictates when Trisha is on the hot seat, she will completely ignore her critics. She will never address controversy head on. She waits till it's long been water under the bridge and then says, I own my shit. No, you don't. The only time I saw her address something pretty quickly was when she said she was trans, and for many that was going too far. She got a landslide of backlash, and it got to her. And she made a teary video claiming she struggles with her gender identity, which to this day few believe, and Trisha continues to weakly double down on when necessary just to justify it. I do agree that she has issues, and I think I've figured out why people have more understanding for Trisha and her antics and the things that she's done. One, people know she's trying to make a living, so she's still trolling in some sense. Two, people know that Trisha does have mental illness. But three, and I think this is the big one that I was thinking a lot about today, too much probably, but I think she's nice to people. She has a history of being nice to people behind the scenes when she's working on her little music videos, when people come to her home. She's never been, even though she's self-obsessed, she's never acted like a diva the way Gabby Hanna and certain other people do. Trisha doesn't have that in her, and that's probably what saves her in the long run in terms of her reputation. So you might have heard Trisha had a TikTok showing a voice memo that Charles Gross sent to her. It was Shane Dawson in 2017 talking about Trisha. Now, if this was my daughter, I would be telling her to stay very far away from anyone who would send you a private voice memo like that. Do it with you, they'll do it to you. But there was no reason for him to do that. It seemed kind of trivial, and it was from 2017. There's already problems in this friendship. It seemed very inappropriate to me. I hadn't thought about Charles Gross for a long time, and I knew he had problems, and I just kind of stopped visiting his channel. So today, I clicked on his channel and saw he had a video up. He was responding to things you assume about me. I'll link it below. No joke, it starts out with him addressing people saying he's obsessed with himself. And here he is saying, no, I'm not, that's self-love. Look at the wall behind him. as he's denying this. You can't write this stuff. I mean, you could, but you'd get an Emmy if it was on TV. Trisha had the sense to not play said voice memo, but she described it. And it was Shane talking about her complaining about a party, I guess using her voice, saying, "Why are you inviting him?" And it really did seem unnecessary to me for Charles to share that, but that really is disloyal. Peter Mott apparently said Shane told him Trisha was a pathological liar. I kind of understand Peter even more sharing that, because I think Shane was probably rude to him, and that probably irked him. He was thinking, why are you saying this about her? And she adores you and trusts you. I don't care for Trisha or Shane, but I get no schadenfreude seeing them on the outs, because I think they got a lot of joy out of their friendship. None of these people are in my life, but I gain nothing from their losses, whether I like them or not. And there's a part of me that hopes that Trisha and Shane rebuild their friendship stronger than before if they can overcome these things and maybe both learn something. It's not like she was always a great friend to him. It's not like she's always done appropriate things. All of a sudden, she's not throwing him under the bus, but the more you see her moving on videos, she's nudging him under the bus, saying he's, the R word against other people. What's a better way to put this? You know what I'm saying, the R word. And she's done things like that as well. She's had a past as well. So I kind of feel like, and she said something inappropriate to somebody younger, even more than once. And somebody posted like a young guy on her lap that's like 16, and it's weird stuff. And it's at the point where I see some things that Shane did that are worse. But remember, she was with a guy who was arrested after the dad beat the hell out of him for trying to take pictures of a young boy, and Trisha defended him. It's almost like if you're going to cancel Shane, you kind of have to cancel her too. If you're going to let her move on, then you should let him move on too. But, of course, a lot of the problem is Shane's not speaking. Shane is not saying anything in his defense. He didn't even unfollow that guy. I don't know if he has now, but if he hasn't, that's really bizarre. Somebody tell me in the comments below if you noticed whether or not Shane has unfollowed this guy, because that's just, if he hasn't, that's belligerence at this point and highly inappropriate, and he can just stay gone as far as I'm concerned. We've seen people almost come to blows and then wind up doing collabs because time changes things and people work things out. Fights take energy, and it's just so much nicer to get along. So maybe in a weird way, observing what is going wrong with these people can teach us things and give us tips as to how to keep communication open with our friends. Certainly, Trish and Shane probably started out more as colleagues, and that could be part of the issue. Trisha, in her own words, once said, "I'm attracted to famous people." That's very vapid. I think we all know that is. Shane definitely showed disloyalty to Trisha. Was he as bad as Jeffrey when someone leaves the room? Hard to know. But he does, in my opinion, owe Trisha an apology for not having her back and for not unfollowing a guy who came for her in the worst way. And finally, for speaking about her in an unflattering way when talking to other people, when she wasn't there to make it funny banter. This might be another instance of Shane just thinking he's being funny, because it's clear his humor is warped and it has gotten him in a lot of trouble with all the offensive things he's done in the name of just trying to be funny. I've also wondered, has this been coming for a while? I heard Gabby and Shane mended fences, and this is another person who was mean to Trisha that Shane is cool with, if that's the case. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I always look forward to our interactions, and you really make this so worth it, because some of you, as I've said many times, you say stuff below and express it in a way that's even better than I can, and I really appreciate you. So thank you very much if you've listened this far. You're all awesome. And until next time, Hausfrau out.